All right. As you can see, I'm back home, and today is episode, let me see, what number is it? 185 of Ascension with A Course in Miracles, and it is February 19th. And I am back in my house after my whirlwind tour where I went to Florida. I drove to Florida from Colorado, took the snow with me. You're welcome, Stacy. I brought snow to Destin, a couple of inches. And anyways, it was a lot of fun doing that trip, 30 days, a lot of driving. I am glad to have made it home. I was just mentioning to Mike, I got home 30 minutes before it started snowing, and we ended up with a snowstorm that brought in over a period of about, I'm going to say maybe 48 hours, brought in like 15, 16, 17 inches of snow in some areas, a little bit more in some areas, maybe 12. But, anyways, I am back in the groove. But today, although I was inspired to share lesson 78, as a continuation to lesson 77 that we've done over the last couple of sessions. Let's see, those are episodes 182, 83, 84, and 85 that covered, no, 182, 83, and 84 that covered lesson 77. I was also asked, guided, this is when I hear that inner voice, to ask you, what would you like to do? Is there something other than moving down this lesson? Is there anything that you would prefer that we focus on today? So you let me know.
I have a couple comments, unless you got something, Stacy. I see you turned your mic off.
No, not at the moment. I don't. I
Okay.
want to hear what you have to say.
Okay. Um, you're all oh heck, I think I repeat it to myself every day and it's not coming to me. All it's this is I'm at a stupor. It'll come to me.
Put you on the
Um,
spot here.
but one of the things that I find fascinating, and I sit kind of in the background and on the sideline, is what's going on with Trump and the new administration. And I know you're actively involved in looking at that. And, to me, you're a highly respected teacher of A Course in Miracles. And yet I also consider Marianne Williamson a teacher and respected teacher of A Course in Miracles. And she is very anti-Trump, while you're a pro-Trump. And I'm just wondering how those two different viewpoints in the name of God come together and I guess join in one.
Yeah, I'm about to sneeze. What a great question. Oh my gosh. I so wish when I open up my forums for questions that somebody would ask that question. And it's absolutely, oh my goodness, I love that. So thank you for that. So the way that I would like to begin with is that I am just doing my best to find my way back to the truth that God has activated in my heart. I don't do it perfectly. I have not done it perfectly every single day, but I have many moments of perfection when I can feel that I am on that path, that I am in that place of recognizing, feeling the truth of God within me. But I still have an egoic mind filled with information that attempts to distract me from walking down that middle way. And when Jesus said, I am the way, he was to me, in A Course in Miracles, is showing us the way to get to that truth, but allowing for all of us to go on the journey in whatever way we go on this journey. But the end goal is to arrive at the place where we recognize that everything is God, that God just is expressing through every single one of us. I'm going to give you a little backstory. And Well, I'm going to give you a backstory and then a backstory, and then I'm going to come and answer your question, if that makes sense. So the backstory is that when I began to understand that the journey that we're on is really a spiral, that we have all left the center of God, if you will, uh, God being the source of all that is, and everything expands, everything just expands, and God is all of it, the tightness in the center and all of it on the edges expanding. What became clear to me is that our focus is to be on the edges expanding creation. Course in Miracles has made that also very clear to me, that we are here to expand the kingdom. We're here to be on those outer edges expanding the kingdom, taking love and creativity to its greatest infinite expressions that none of us can ever say we've achieved at the end, at the edge of what is possible when we combine love and creativity and see what can we create. However, so many of us being on that edge, being on that realm before incarnation, and I'll use the course's terminology. While we're in the mind of God, we're playing on those edges. We're playing with everything that is possible. Then we make a decision. We have that tiny mad idea that I wonder what it's like to, you know, separate myself from God. I wonder what it's like to not be part of that expansion and enter into the realm of contraction. So we incarnate, have the experience while in the mind of God that we're separate, which is one of the most amazing things that has assisted me so much, is to know that we are just all in the mind of God. That has allowed me to move to that frequency because, as you know, I use this chart, which is given to us by another, brother in Christ, which wrote the book Power versus Force, because I believe that everybody is giving us something, giving us a piece of information, helping us return to the truth the way that they found it. And for Dr. David Hawkins, kinesiology was a way, besides him having his own personal encounter with the divine, as I had my own personal encounter with the divine. He followed the path of kinesiology because he could, as a scientist, he could test it and quantify it. So I have learned from Dr. David Hawkins that when we understand what is happening and we provide like a frequency, we can gauge when we are so far from the truth to when we are in alignment with truth. Then I took his map of consciousness and I put my spiral on it, and I can see that when we are operating in what is not true, we're so contracted, and when we're operating in what is true, we feel more expanded, returning to that leading edge where we are creating, because the focus is not on my own personal stuff and battling to be somebody and to be seen and to have and all of those things that are of the ego. We can move into the expanded realm where we can then be in collaboration and co-creation, and that requires for us to be in communication, which requires trust and requires transparency. All these pieces I'm going to link them all up together to answer your question in a second. So when I got very clear, felt it in my bones that what we are doing when we're waking up is, while we are in the mind of God, thinking that we're separate and alone and battling all these things, we haven't left the mind of God. And we're just pretending to be fighting one another here because we can. In this dimension, which means in this level of awareness, of remembering who we are, duality is part of the game. The ego is what creates this experience of separation. As we move closer to the truth, meaning we expand out of this third dimensional contraction, we don't have to play with the ego quite the same way. We still have an egoic sense of separation, a sense of self, but it's a sense of knowing that we are experiencing separation, but we're doing it in collaboration and co-creation, which is where love takes over. Here, we're operating with fear in the third dimension. We're moving up to higher frequency to operate with love. All right, so the backstory. and I don't remember the exact dates, but I want to say it was 2017, 2018, after the 2016 election, which, by the way, up leading to the 2016 election, I was a Bernie Sanders supporter. I leaned more liberal. I never considered myself woke. I was never far liberal, but I considered myself a centrist, more of a libertarian that leaned more in on the liberal side because I really wanted to do wonderful things for my brothers and sisters. I really believed that the government could do amazing things to help humanity. During that particular elections 2016, and I saw what the Democratic Party did to Bernie Sanders, which anybody who wants to look at the data, look at the actual information, we could see that he was leading the pack. However, the Democrats selected Hillary and basically told Bernie, yes, you may have a bigger following, but sit down, shut up, you're not going to be the nominee. That really struck me as something that was completely anti-democracy. And I had to take a step back and, as a student of the course at that time, probably 6, 7, 8 years as a student and teaching it maybe a handful of years, I had to take a step back and go, okay, what is it that I'm observing here? Because something about that selection of Hillary Clinton did not sit well with me. So I had to feel, and that's when my charts basically, well, I was using the charts before that, but that's when I really began to utilize the map of consciousness in my Course in Miracles classes at Unity. Utilize the map of consciousness and say, okay, because in that classroom, we had people who were Bernie supporters, then those who were happy to join the Hillary bandwagon, and those who, like me, absolutely were not going to support that. What we thought was improper behavior, egoic behavior, to lie and cheat to into the nomination and not to have earned it through the popular vote. And it was clear in the events that Bernie was hosting where he was getting thousands of, tens of thousands of participants, and Hillary was drawing such small crowds. And you could see it if you followed social media, you could see that he had really truly the momentum and the support to have deserved that nomination. And then in my classroom, so we had those, we're going to be Democrats no matter what. We don't like what happened to Bernie, pulled away, like me, became, we're supporting the Green Party only because I didn't really know what Donald Trump was offering as a candidate because I wasn't studying him. I was sidetracked following Bernie. And then we had Trump supporters in that group, very vocal, I would call them conservatives, patriots who supported that. So it gave way to very rich conversations during that time. It was actually really fun classes. And and people would say, well, then who of us is right? Similar questions, who does A Course in Miracles says is right? And that group was so amazing, so wonderful, so open-minded. Talk about living some of those characteristics that when I pulled out the chart and I began to say, well, let's calibrate this. I was sharing how my understanding of love versus my understanding of fear and how I can know if I'm in love or fear became very simple. Body doesn't lie. In our bodies, we can feel when we are aligned with truth and when we are opposing truth, which is exactly what Dr. Hawkins did in his teachings and that he shared through Power versus Force. You can calibrate what is true from what is false. You can tell the difference. That's why so many naturopaths, so many healers utilize kinesiology to calibrate. Are you telling the truth or not? Are you guys familiar with kinesiology or have you ever experienced it? Just nod your head or give me a thumbs up. No, no. You have, Stacy? Okay. So our body does not lie. And if we were to listen to our body, we would get the answers. We wouldn't even have to talk to each other. We could just, calibrate. Are you holding? Because if it's true, you can hold it with strength. If it's a lie, you go weak. Your muscles literally go weak because they're letting you know you're holding something that is not in alignment with your higher self. And of course, our higher self, our soul, our spirit, whatever you want to call it, vibrates at the frequency of God, which is love, which is truth, as I have come to understand it. So anything that doesn't align with that has to go weak because it cannot support the high frequency of truth. So in that group, I was able to really listen to what everybody was saying and have all of those opinions and use the Course in Miracles to calibrate the candidates. And I'll tell you, as we calibrated the candidates, it was very clear, very, very clear that when our ego was talking, we would argue with the calibration because we needed to be right about our candidate. But when we were moving into that place of neutrality, it was easy to see the calibration of the candidates. And what came out of that is that Hillary Clinton had calibrated when we were doing it in a place of pride, a lot of pride, righteousness. When we looked at Bernie, he calibrated higher in that frequency. And actually, the chart is a lot more extensive. Give me a quick second. All right, here is the actual chart from Dr. Hawkins' map of consciousness. So as we looked at everything, when we were operating, when I was attempting to use the chart to calibrate, Hillary Clinton was operating at a level of, let's see, where is pride? Pride up here. But a pride that was very demanding. And when you look at this, it was clear to those of us who were being, again, sincere, that there was a lot of history that allowed for the group to recognize that in that pride there was a lot of arrogance that was more egoic. When we looked at Bernie, we looked at that there was a lot of pride because to be able to move into those positions where you're a leader, you got to have a lot of pride. You got to feel confident about who you are. It doesn't have to be an arrogant pride. It can be more humble pride, and began to see that more in Bernie. So those two were calibrating pretty close. One more arrogant, one more humble, one more who had had plenty of time to do a lot of things, and another one who was just coming up sharing the things that he could do in the position of as president, speaking of Bernie. Anyways, we were able to calibrate and see, okay, they're somewhat similar, but one had more of that egoic pride, and one was more of a soul pride. I want to do things for the greater good of all. Then we calibrated Trump. And Trump showed up in a place of incredible courage, slightly above, in a place of courage that didn't need that pride. Look at me, I'm the whatever it was. At the time, it was more of this courage to say, I've already done all those things. I've already been successful. I've already become a multi-billionaire, whatever it is. There was a cockiness, of course, which is egoic, but there was also this sense of desire to take all of humanity, specifically America, to that place of finding their voice, returning to a place of their own pride. So here's where the distinctions really come in. Where Trump calibrated a little higher than the other two, the biggest difference for me, and again, that I shared in that group, was that where Trump was attempting to lead from, the platform he was speaking from, was that all Americans deserve to have a say in what is happening in this country. That he was doing what he was doing to return the power to the people. as it's stated in the Constitution. What I began to see with the other candidates, with Bernie and Hillary, is that they wanted to run things because they really thought they knew what was best for us and not really so much following the Constitution. Because if we followed the Constitution, we really wouldn't have any issues today. Truly would not have any issues today. So, back to the backstory. Shortly after Trump won, maybe within a year, there was a group of ministers who got together in Atlanta, and they were hosted at the Spiritual Living Center, where I was also teaching A Course in Miracles. And Marianne Williamson was invited as to come and talk to all these ministers from all over Atlanta to come up with a plan to unite people with an understanding that we needed to, at the time, save democracy. And I was invited to participate, and I was there, and I was in that meeting. And basically, it pretty much started with Marianne asking everybody to express themselves in terms of what is it that they saw would be the most important thing for all of us to do as we prepare to save democracy. Now, let me just say, prior to putting all of my support behind Bernie, I was really excited that Marianne was running for president. And I was listening to what she was saying, and so much of what she was saying was spot on. So much of what she was bringing to the foreground is that our country had been really truly taken over by the oligarchs, by corporations. But corporations can't take over if you don't have government allowing that to happen. So she was pointing at some of the things that had happened inside of our own government, some of the departments that needed to be looked at that had facilitated this takeover by the financial systems, the money systems, the big pharma, at the I to the best of my recollection, and this has been what, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, so I don't remember all the details, but to the best of my recollection, she was focusing on that we needed to return this country back to a democracy and not be an oligarchy. And I was in agreement with that because at that time, I didn't really fully understand that we're not a democracy, we are a republic. So I began to research a lot of those things. So by the time I came to that meeting, I was a lot more informed about what a republic versus a democracy is all about. And she was supporting a democracy, the return to democracy, which is basically a liberal position, not a conservative position. Those who understand the difference between republic and democracy would never support the democracy the way that we have been conditioned to think of it. So in that meeting, everybody went around. I was one of the last ones to speak. Maybe might have been two more people after me. And every single person basically said, we need to do whatever we can to stop Trump. The focus of that conversation was on what needed to be done to stop Trump. Right there, I was checking in and going, love doesn't need to stop anything. Love leads. It doesn't stop to defend, to attack. By then, I was already a Course in Miracles student that was applying these principles into my own life. And I knew that as within, so without. If I am going to stand for love, I cannot be standing against what I don't like, against hate, against fear, against anything that I don't support, because it is the ego that pushes against, it is the ego that attacks. So, right there, I knew I'm listening. Although well-intentioned, although amazing, loving people who all of them were leaders in their own communities, teachers, ministers, whatever they were leaders who were sharing information that their followers were listening to. And I knew that these people were speaking what I had heard some of them speak in from the pulpit or in videos or whatever. And it hit me in that meeting. It is one thing to speak truth, it's another one to walk that talk. And I checked in and I said, I've got to speak the truth. I cannot, what's true for me. accepting that everybody is where they are, because by then, remember, I'd already been using this chart and I don't see people as good or bad, left or right, black or white, male or female. I tend to see people from a perspective, where are you calibrating? Because that tells me how far from truth are they. The very truth that the Course in Miracles is attempting to bring us back toward. So how far away from that truth have we gotten? So I just sat, and internally I would begin to do my own inner assessment of the calibration of what those people were saying. And they kept coming in low, pretty low, pretty low. There was anger, there was revenge, there was resentment, there was intolerance, there were just all of these things. And I just sat there and went, wow, isn't this interesting? So everybody pretty much agreed with what Marianne started the meeting with, that we needed to take this democracy. We needed to save the democracy. To that was the comment from the oligarchs, from all these money people, and Trump being a money person and going to be part of the game and all of those things. Everybody pretty much fell right in line with what she was saying. When it got to me, and by the way, this was the last meeting I attended. When it got to me, what I said is, I believe that the only way to save our way of our American way, because I didn't say save the democracy, it was save our American way, or words again to that effect. It's been a while. I said we need to start listening to why is Trump so popular. I am one of those people who has left the Democratic Party because of what they did to Bernie. And what they did to Bernie is not a party that I can support, which in essence is blocking our democracy, because Hillary was selected, not elected. And I said, so from the research that I have done, we are a republic, not a democracy. And I totally agree that we have allowed money to take over, and the people are not being given a voice. But there is so much more that is happening right now that we need to start opening up the dialogue and learning why would so many people want to support Trump, and find out from them. And I think that would create a better platform for somebody, and I was addressing Marianne, like you, who is so knowledgeable, who understands teachings like the Course in Miracles, to unite people in a common place, bring everybody from both parties to create something that is, to me, way more sustainable and in alignment with our founding documents. Because I believe that our founding fathers inspired, they channeled through those documents the truth of who we are, which is that we're all created equal, endowed by the Creator with the same inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If we focus on that, then we are truly operating per the Constitution, more as a republic. And then we can bring from all parties and create something that would speak to everyone. And Marianne proceeded to tell me, again, I don't remember the exact words, so I'm going to paraphrase, you are part of the problem. This is what is creating this division in this country, that's supporting Trump and that thinks that anything that he's doing makes any sense. That is what we need to get away from. We need to get back to being a democracy. We need to stand together and fight, and words along this effect for those who don't have a voice, who are being marginalized, and all of those things. And then I just sat back. I let the other two people finish speaking. And when the meeting was over with, I, did my pleasantries and shaked hands, and I left, and then got an email about when our next meeting was going to be. And I just asked to be removed from that mailing list, and I didn't go back. So to answer your question, I don't know if that gives you kind of a good background for where I stand. So to answer your question, for me, I see both of these parties as nothing but the opportunity to see who is more in alignment with God and who is blocking more of God. And I look at what is happening from the lens of as within, so without. For me to override my ego, which is that righteous part of me, that part of me that thinks I know what's best for everybody. And my platform or my stance or my beliefs are the only right ones. For me to override that part of me that was so arrogant that I see in so many leaders, because when you move into pride, you got to take some arrogance with you because you're going to be dealing with a lot of things coming at you. And if you don't have a level of arrogance to really think that you're right and you know what's best, it's going to be very difficult to get things done. So I understand that game. But as we continue to ascend, to calibrate higher, meaning to move further out. If you look at the spiral, what we're doing is we're moving further out to the edges that becomes tolerant and allows everything to exist as it is. There is a clear distinction, a line that we all must cross, and it is the line of courage. And the line of courage is the place where we have to be willing to examine everything that we believe, put it out for scrutiny, put it out there for all to see. Because when you have nothing to hide, there's no need to hide anything. And what I began to recognize with Trump and his team is that the primary thing that I was hearing was this need to go back to transparency. We needed to see what was being done. We basically needed to undone everything that has allowed for the very thing that Marianne talked about, that oligarchy to take over. How is it that our government that was supposed to be there, paid for by the people, to work for the people, how were they accepting bribes, participating in doing things that were absolutely completely against our founding documents? How is this happening? So for me, one who is willing to just question everything, to open it all up for all to see, is telling me they're operating at a level that there is a fearlessness that goes in there. One who's trying to protect and hold on to the old is someone who is operating in fear that some of those things are going to be discovered. So when I have to, break it down into why I support Trump um, over anybody else, really, is because he has a higher frequency, a higher desire to return us not only to the Constitution, again, back to being a republic, but he has been willing courageously to expose all of the ways that we have gotten away from that. And that is why I select him and why I respect that Marianne would not select him, because I have become so clear through this journey that when I'm operating under no laws but God's, I'm not here to have anybody like me anymore. I'm not here to be part of this group or that group, the spiritual group, the liberal group. I'm moving more and more into a place of being singularly me, an expression of God, unique through me, with all of my life experiences, this one and anyone before, to right here, right now, recognize that whatever these parties do, it doesn't affect any one of us from a true perspective. We are all in the mind of God. We are all just fine in the mind of God. No soul is ever going to be affected or hurt, or spirit, or whatever you want to call it, in the mind of God. However, in this 3D game, in this experience that we feel contracted, every single one of us has to face what we believe is true or not true. And the way that I can tell somebody is in alignment is with the truth is there is a recognition of freedom. There is a recognition, and with freedom comes transparency. There's nothing to hide when you are truly free. And for me, that is what I will use. So as I'm watching the news right now, and here we are, February 2025, we've got one group, I'll call it the Trump team, made up, by the way, with people who were Democrats, who were card-carrying life members of the Democratic Party, even part of that party in Kennedy, of the management or the leaders of that party. And when I saw people who shifted over and I heard why they left, and I said, well, those are a lot of the same reasons why I moved out, I realized that I'm not a Republican and I'm not a Democrat. I really am a centrist, a libertarian, if you had to label it, because it supports the Constitution. And I don't know if you've seen some of the teachings that I've done, but to me, the Constitution, when I pull only that statement that all of us are created equal, endowed by the Creator with the same inalienable rights, it matches perfectly to what A Course in Miracles teaches. And liberty, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Liberty is key. So freedom is key. And that is where I make my decisions. So today I stand for the Trump team because they are truly exposing all that has kept humanity, I'm going to say Americans, in bondage. We have been kept slaves in a system that when the ego understands how to manipulate the mind of another, and we all have to understand how the mind operates, which is why the course is a course in mind training. When we know how the mind operates and the ego is using that knowledge, it creates through psychology, uh, ways to manipulate the mind to perpetuate the separation at this level of haves and have-nots. When we are looking at what is happening with the mind, the minds are controlled, but instead of with the ego, we're doing it more with the heart. We're doing it with a desire that recognizes our innate equality. There is no hierarchy. There's really a doing what is in the best interest of the greater good for all. That really is the basis: freedom, liberation, but it doesn't come easy. It comes with a lot of discomfort, as within, so without, breaking down my ego that was convincing me because I was spiritual and I taught A Course in Miracles, I was better than anybody else, breaking down that part of myself to come to the place of realizing we're all equal was very painful. I had to expose my lies. I had to expose where I created this delusion for myself. And to me, the Trump team is exposing outside what needs to be done as within, so without. We need to break down this illusion that the government can be secret, that the government can have their own things that nobody tests, nobody checks, nobody does anything. When we go back and listen to, which I did, to the speeches given by President Eisenhower when he was leaving office, and he spoke about the military industrial complex, then Kennedy was assassinated, I absolutely believe, because he was saying that he was going to shatter these secret societies that had no business being among us, shatter these secret societies into I think he said 1,000 pieces. To me, that's what Trump is doing now, shattering these secret societies that we have allowed to divide the American people, to create haves and have-nots, to allow for the 1% to be ruling the remainder. And that is why, for me, it's so important that we have transparency. We have to see what has been dividing us. Otherwise, we cannot really unite while we have that wall between us. And right now, that to me calibrates the highest and is more in alignment with what the Course in Miracles teaches to me. All right, I know that was a very long answer. Now I'm going to open it up to you. What say you?
That was impressive as hell.
Yeah.
How, how you're able to just flow like that is really impressive. But I do have to ask, do you feel that sense of joy? I mean, again, I'm going to say that I sit on the sidelines for this particular scenario. Okay, I'm not pro-Trump, I'm not anti-Trump. I
Beautiful.
see some of the clips of Trump making arrogant statements. But I've certainly kind of followed what your perspective is, and that makes sense. But I go back to the characteristics of God, and it almost seems, and I'm not, you certainly bring up the one self expressing itself in many voices, but we look at defenselessness, joy, um, just trusting God's plan. Um, Tolerating. I mean, we could go through each one of the characteristics. And I was thinking about this, I don't know, last week or something. And it just seemed to me that those characteristics that are the teachers of God are getting nipped at or something. Certainly not thrown away. I'm not saying that, but they're being tested, it seems to me.
Yeah.
Um, And I have to ask, I've been meaning to ask you this. I wrote it down while you were talking. Every irritation is an invitation. Did you make that up or you
Yeah.
did?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well,
That's every time I got irritated, I would stop and say, okay, I'm being invited to look within.
that is so simple and so profound. I I had an incident a week ago or something that really brought this to mind. But anyways, so I guess, do you feel that at all when you're trying to live by God's characteristics and teaches God's characteristics, that any of those characteristics are being pecked at?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And that to
Hey,
me,
Lina,
yes.
before you answer, can I share something that maybe you could tie all this together? Because
Sure, please.
there's something about it that's it can all be tied together.
Please.
So I have, the Year of Forgiveness book, and I was directed to read lesson 243 this morning. And at the beginning, it says, what freedom, relaxation, and joy it brings you to say, today I will leave everything alone. I will leave everything just as it is and trust that there is a great plan afoot on this planet about which I have very little information. Therefore, I should not be so quick to say that is wrong, that shouldn't be happening. I don't know why that ties in
Oh,
to
I
this conversation for
oh
me.
yeah.
absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's one of the beautiful things about when we are back to those characteristics, when we're being open-minded and when we are being patient and when we're being generous with our time and when we're being tolerant. I mean, all of those characteristics. And if we would be willing to enjoy another person's differences, we would all be in a place where we could literally have conversations. We could be in communication that would allow us to move into co-creation, collaboration, cooperation. But it is because we think that we are right. It is that need to be right that really keeps us from trusting God. It's pure egoic, the need to be right. However, when we are on this journey, we are kind of gauging right and wrong. Course in Miracle calls it right mind, wrong mind. So we're using those words because it's all we have. But if we can apply right and wrong to how it makes us feel in terms of calibration, we would get a more accurate answer. So I love what you shared, Stacy. That is absolutely perfect. And back to what you were saying, Mike, on this journey, I have discovered that the first part of my journey, and I've been at it for about 25 years now, the first part of my journey, I was literally dealing with all that emotional pain, the emotional wound, the all of the lies that I had been believing about myself. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. I'm unwanted. Um, all of those things, looking at how those beliefs had created my life, my reality, the choices that I had made, the situations I had gotten myself into, all because of what I believed. Because bottom line, this whole world is created on belief. God had a thought, a belief, an idea, and from that, everything came forth. We have thoughts, ideas. From that, our life manifests. So, looking at all of those emotional things and looking at my beliefs, but I was looking at them through the lens of my ego. Yes, Holy Spirit was guiding me, but all I had at that time was mostly ego. I had an encounter with God that just blew everything open for a short period of time. And then my egoic thoughts reassembled. I was living my life. I was taking kids to school. I was married. I was had a job. I'm a realtor, all of these things. So I had to operate in this world with all the information that I knew, but having been touched by a truth that left an imprint on me that I could not acknowledge that there was another way. Then my journey was, how do I get back to that way? How can I live with the awareness that we are all one? Well, I had to cultivate trust. How do I get to that place where if we're all one, now I can be tolerant and open-minded? And again, I'm sharing the characteristics of a teacher of God. I have to look at all of the beliefs that separate us. That's when the irritation became an invitation. Every single time I knew the truth of something, but I still operated in a different way, I would always get irritated. Why did that person do that? The truth is that they should be loving, they should be tolerant, they should be open-minded, they should trust the process, but they're attacking me. And I realized that irritation that I'm having with that person is an invitation for me to see my ego's motivation. And it began to show me everything that bothers me on the outside is a projection. And again, if you take the Course in Miracles and you really study it, there is absolutely no room for interpretation. And the Course tells you in the introduction, take what resonates right now, take what you can handle, but do not attempt to write the Course. Do not attempt to change it. Because if you change it, your ego's trying to slip its way out of doing the real work that is necessary. And it is to see that I have projected the world I see. So I cannot be a victim of it. I am here observing this world. So when I began to observe it with gentleness, with kindness in my heart, I really began to recognize that everybody is playing a part to give me the opportunity to feel like I'm separate and then be here as one who can activate the love of God in me again, which is nothing more than Christ consciousness. And can I then look at this world through that loving lens, realizing everyone is doing the best that they can with what they've got, showing me, reflecting back to me who I'm showing up as. Can I be forgiving? Can I be gentle with everybody else as I want done to me? That's why Jesus gave us those commandments. Love your Father. I've come to love God because I have felt the love of God in me. There is absolutely nothing like that, not even the love for my grandchildren, because the love of God is so pure and so complete and so all encompassing that your ego cannot even show up there. But for my grandchildren, I love them dearly. Sorry, that always touches me. I love them dearly, but the grandma, oh, don't fall down. Oh, eat your food. Or there's still a need to control. Um, so I know ego is still involved there. But when we feel that love of God within and we activate our Christ consciousness, which is the recognition that everything is made of that same substance, everything is made of that same light, everything is made of that same love, we must understand that we have all, in what appears to be all these people, 8 billion people projected from me, I need to do the work to get myself out of this hole that I have dug myself in by believing that I am less than how God created me. So, this journey of ascension is a journey through the characteristics of a teacher of God. So, I could sit, and I have done with some very courageous people who have reached out to me and said, your support of Trump baffles me since you're a teacher of love and light. Can you please share why you would do that? And I've sat, there are not that many of those conversations, but the ones that I've had, they're so beautiful because I pretty much have to take them to look at these characteristics, but understand that where is Trump on his development of trust? Where is Hillary on her development of trust, or where was she at the time that she ran for office? Where is Marianne? To me, when we trust that everything is happening as it should, and we've achieved that place where we don't need to be involved with anything because it's all happening as it should. I can't wait to get to that level. But today, I'm at the level, the development of trust that is allowing me, I'll tell you which the Course in Miracles calls them periods. I'm at that period of recognizing that things are being unsettled, but it's that unsettling that is sorting out that which we need to see is true versus not true, is transparent versus hidden. We have to be, as a collective, prepared to do what it says in here. Right now, to me, humanity is in the process, specifically Americans, of the great undoing, which is the first period of developing trust. And it's clear that it's the first period because we still have sides that think that their side is the right side. But as we sort and we allow things to come to the surface, the lies that have been kept from Americans, we're going to enter very quickly into that period of sorting, which is the second period, which is going to be very helpful, but nobody's going to understand it's helpful because we have to see this was this is what actually should have happened. This is what they said that they would do, and this is what they did. We're going to have a time of reckoning, a time of recognizing that all of us who have been indoctrinated into just working our butts off and sending our money to through the system to through the IRS and paying our taxes and let somebody else take care of us participated in the perpetuation of maintaining a level of disconnection from coming to God as our ultimate authority. And we put in the middle government as an authority, like we put in the middle religion as an authority or education system as an authority. So we're having to see that these things are not what they seem. And they're not what they seem because we gave them power. So in this period of sorting out and breaking down, what is happening is the shattering of the illusion that there is any kind of authority above us. And most of humanity are nowhere near the level of consciousness, the level of awareness to really be able to see what's happening without experiencing incredible fear. Because our safety, our security, our well being has been tied to somebody else taking care of us. Until we break down the illusion that somebody is taking care of us, we cannot face those irritations, which are those fears that are going to send everybody on a personal inner journey to see how is it that we don't have a direct connection to God, even though God is within, which is the crazy thing. This is why we forgive what never happened. When we're truly practiced in this work, we're forgiving what never happened because our soul's never been affected. But in this third dimension of experience, where we appear to be separate and we appear to have been conditioned to give our power to the government or to the church, those illusions have to be shattered. And the only person that was promising to shatter that illusion was Trump, to go in there and expose everything that has been lying to the American people, to return the power back to people. So people now are going to have to see what has been done. I've got a friend who just reached out to me yesterday, and she said, even though she's totally, completely, she has let me know how much she despises Trump. And she's one of my sweet love and light friends, how much she despises Trump. But she's been wanting to talk to me about how, what he's doing with Elon Musk and exposing all of these things. How is this? How can I stand for that? Going into people's private accounts and blah, blah, blah. and she just sent me a text. We haven't been able to have that conversation. She wasn't feeling well. She sent me a text and she said, "Now, do you think they're going to return us that money?" And I thought, okay, if that's what it's going to take for people to relax and be in a place of I don't know what anything is for, instead of being so quick to judge, observe what is happening, find that irritation. What is it saying about me? What is it that I'm upset about? Because if everybody was really at a level in their journey that was more mature, they would never be judging out there. They would be sharing their opinion, which is perfectly okay because they wouldn't be getting triggered. They wouldn't have irritations. They would just have the ability to say, "Well, I see it this way. I don't see it that way. Let's talk." But when we're defending ourselves, we're totally defending our irritation, defending our wounds, which is again what we're studying in the book, The Untethered Soul. We're defending our story, and our story is a misinterpretation based on an immature child, an immature aspect of ourselves that experienced something that didn't resonate with the frequency of love that we are. When we didn't feel loved, when we didn't feel cared for, we felt the frequency of lack of love, but we didn't understand that that's what was happening inside. So we've all been operating in that lack of love, lack of security, lack of safety. So we have all been easily conditioned to rely on the government to do those things for us. And Trump is busting that illusion by exposing that there really is, there really is nothing back there. There is no Wizard of Oz there taking care of us. It's all made up. But isn't that what this entire game is? It's all made up in the mind of God where we're safe and nobody gets hurt. So for me, those characteristics and understanding the development of trust has allowed me to see where I'm at and to be very clear that I don't need to convince anybody to support Trump, but I am not going to hide my excitement at what is happening, which is why I share it. I just don't need to convince anybody to believe it because everybody's creating their own reality, however they want to create it. So, again, another big answer, long answer. I don't know. Does that help bring those characteristics together? Because when I look at Trump, like Jesus said, I can't point at the speck in his eye until I take the log out of my eye. And in the beginning, the things that I didn't like about Trump, I was able to go directly to me. And the things that I admired about Trump, I was able to trace those back to me. And now I sit in deliberately choosing to recognize that just like me, he has an ego and does some egoic things. But just like me, he has the ability to connect to God. And when he does, I can feel in him the certainty that what he is doing is to expose the very divisions that have kept Americans from being able to see what's happening with our own money. He may not be somebody that I feel calibrates at the highest of frequencies, and maybe I can't see it in him because it's not where I sit all the time. But in the moments that I feel that frequency, I get the certainty that he is the right person at this time, not to build the happy dream that we want, but to break down the walls that keep us from beginning to see that there's an expansive opportunity here for a happy dream to be created. But every American needs to take back their power from the government and begin to use them as representatives, not as those who control us. That is a big part of this journey. And it's at the very beginning of the development of trust when what we thought kept us safe begins to crumble. Because if it doesn't crumble, you don't know that you're in an illusion and you don't know that you have the power to survive it. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it. What do you think, Mike? And thank you for this dialogue. This is so beautiful.
Yeah, I really like the comparison you made to our country night right now with trust and just being in the first stage. I didn't flip over through that, but I certainly remember that part. Um, and I really enjoy your perspective. It's Yeah, I'll have to contemplate on it and just
Absolutely.
um
And I recommend take what
um,
resonates, leave what doesn't.
yeah,
That's important.
yeah.
Can I say one more thing? I didn't really touch on this so much, but the characteristic of honesty. When I look at honesty and I look at the things that Trump has said, hardly any of them have been untrue. When I look at honesty through what others have said about Trump that are accusing him, just about every single one of them has been untrue. And to me, that is such a big gauge because the things that he has been accused have, when we look a little deeper and we see, and it's coming out. I mean, that's why if we just sit back and stop, attacking and blaming and shaming and judging, it's all coming out. Sit back and enjoy the show. It's all coming out. Everything that Trump was accused of, and so many of the things that he said that he was ridiculed for, all are coming out to be true. What he said was true and he was ridiculed for, and what he was accused of wrongdoing have been fabricated and are showing up as false. And as we sit back, we're just watching the ego playing its game for survival. And those who want to hold on to the old system want to hold on to that which benefits them. But anybody who is willing to break down the old understands that we, as God created us, let's go back to the beginning of the conversation. God is always on the leading edge of expansion. Our government, as it operates, is always on contraction. More laws, more red tape, more regulations, more suppression of liberties and abilities to do things. So if you just want to purely look at it from where is God showing up and where God's being blocked, you can look at the government. You can look at religion. Anything that seeks to control and suppress is not loving, it's not expanding. That is what humanity right now is being invited to look at and say, yep, that was my source of comfort, but I'm okay doing things a little bit different because I want a different result. That discomfort is what most of the world is experiencing because our old safety net is being clipped. And we're not going to know we have wings to fly until that net gets totally cut down and we find ourselves, oh my gosh, I could have flown all along. But instead, I was being coddled in this little false safety net. And I'm just so excited for the opportunity that so many are going to experience.
Mhm. Thank you, Mike, for this question. What a great conversation this was. I so love listening to you guys.
That's
Thank you for adding your
yeah.
piece.
Stacy, what's the name of that book that you're lesson 243, you said?
It's A Year in Forgiveness.
A
Are you
year?
familiar with Tina Spalding?
Yeah, a little bit. A year in forgiveness.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's a
That
channel.
I'm
Mike,
sorry.
she's a channel who channels Jesus. And what a year in forgiveness is Jesus channeled, had her read every one of the Course in Miracles lessons. And then he came through and gave his commentary for every lesson. And the year
Oh,
in forgiveness is the list of all of those commentaries for each lesson. And Stacy was in my group last year that we went. Oh no, Stacy, you were not in that.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
So last year I took a whole group through a year of forgiveness where we looked at the commentary for every lesson. But
mhm.
some of the same friends, mutual friends that we have, had mentioned to Stacy that we were doing this book, and I highly, highly
Yeah.
recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you, Stacy. I so appreciate you guys being here. And what a powerful episode, 185. Um, I thank you. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
totally. See you guys maybe tonight if you guys are going
Yep.
to join us for book club. And if not, I'll see you next week.
No, we'll see you
Okay.
tonight.
All right, dear.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.